Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast. And over speakerphone, I have the wonderful and talented local musician, Breanne Marie. Hello.
Hi, Crystal.
Now, Breanne, we spoke a number of years back at KUWS, and I believe you and your newly husband kind of formed the Front Porch Sinners.
Yeah, it was, I want to say maybe 9 years ago that you and I did that interview, and Evan and I were talking about the Kickstarter and my very first album and how we had to put a band together so we could get in the studio and record.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm glad you remember it a little bit better than I do. But
it was a long time ago.
Yes, it's been quite a journey. And you and Evan, I've just loved kind of seeing the evolution of your band and things that are going on. So officially, it's Breanne Marie and the Front Porch Sinners. How did you come about with the Front Porch Sinners?
Well, we really needed to put a group together for the album, the first album, and I would tell Evan and friends, I'm not a band person. I don't want the drama. I don't think I'd be good in a band. I don't know really what I want and the direction I want to go. But when we had an album, we had to put musicians together, at least for recording. And it was there when we were rehearsing that I was just so excited about where this could go. And bandmates bring so much in to the music. They lend a lot of direction around not just soloing, but arrangements of songs and how things should sound. And, when you have more people, you have more ideas. And then, of course, the camaraderie of having a group of built-in friends that do music with you, which has been a lot of fun. People say band family, and they do feel like family to me. It feels like siblings that I get to hang out with every week. And then for the name Front Porch Sinners, I was trying to think of something that was related to the Grand Ole Opry days where it would be the lead singer and the something. And it was always something really fun, maybe funny, play on words or something cute, but memorable. And I grew up in Central Hillside hanging out on a front porch. And, of course, we were swearing and some kids were smoking and some were drinking. So, that's sinning, So I thought, okay, Front Porch Sinners, that sounds like a fun name.
Yes, and you guys have been around quite a while, tried and true. Every year you guys play homegrown. You've done multiple shows around town. It's absolutely fabulous to kind of see the band grow and evolve, as well as your music. And now you just released another album, Juniper. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a whirlwind. I mean, pandemic, but also new album. So it's been quite the ride this year. And we've really grown as a band. We look for a lot of opportunities to play things like Bayfront or music in the park, anything that's a outdoor, family-friendly community event. We love those. So we've been applying for those types of opportunities for our band, and we've been really working on our live sound and our sets so that when we're out there playing, whether it's a community event or at a place like Blacklist in downtown Duluth, that we engage in the crowd and we have fun and they're having fun as well.
Yes, perfect. Excellent to hear. And now, Breanne, for people that aren't familiar with your music, you lean a little bit more country than the stereotypical Duluth folk artist. What kind of brought that about?
Yeah, when I first started playing music, I think we talked about this, or at least I was sharing it with other interviewers years ago. I started off playing classic country covers because it's just a few chords, the 3 chords that I knew how to play on guitar as a beginner guitar player. And country is, for me, that's what I grew up on, and it was very easy for me to sing country. So here I am learning a brand new instrument, singing in front of people, which I hadn't done other than karaoke, and country music was comfortable for me to do. And then I started to branch out into different genres like folk and alt country, Americana, and then of course rock and pop have always been genres for me, just as an 80s kid, or 80s maybe 90s kid. Of course, pop and rock were always there for me to listen to as well. But then as the band got put together and was growing over the years, we've moved from that classic country 90s country vibe and really moved into the Americana alt country world. And that's been inspired by our musicians. We've got a fiddle player now on this. This is our first full-length album with our fiddle player. We also have a bassist that plays upright bass and electric and just has a wide knowledge of sounds. And then with drums, we've gone more into that Americana style. So the musicians have helped shape that. And then I've been inspired by musicians like Margot Price, Emmylou Harris, Casey Musgraves, these people that are, they're country, but they're on the fringe. They're on the outside of that. Those sounds are what I'm loving right now. And so my music that I've been writing and the musicians that I'm playing with, we're moving in that direction. So it's evolved.
Perfect. And it sounds like obviously we're friends on Facebook, and you've evolved as a person tenfold. I mean, you're not the same person I knew 9 years ago, and I would hope that I'm not the same person you knew 9 years ago. So
there's been a lot of change over the years. I've been, when everything started about 10 years ago, it was based off of it stemmed from, or it started out of this depression I was in from losing my father and my brother Tim. And so my music, the stuff I was writing for that first album and the next EP after that, was all around that loss. And then over the years, I've just grown in it with my mental health and with coping with those losses, carrying that grief and learning how all of it's intertwined. And then in 2018, my brother Justin died. And so here I am with no siblings, no father, lots of years of grieving and loss, but I'm also just entered into my 40s. I turned 40 years old in this month. And there's so much wisdom that comes with reaching that milestone and going through all the things that I have. So I think that, there has been change in myself, but also with the music, and that's all going together.
Yes, that's excellent to hear, Breanne. Excellent to hear. And I'm terribly sorry for your losses. I mean, no one should have to experience that. And with you bringing that up, I could definitely hear kind of that vibe in your first album, and in this next one it's a little bit more jumpier, it's lighter, definitely, but you actually went and you recorded this one at Sparta Sound. Tell me a little bit about your experience with Rich and Jermaine out there.
Yeah, we love Sparta. We were hoping for a normal year. We had this booked 2 weeks or maybe 1 or 2 weeks before the state shut down for Minnesota for COVID. So we were all thinking life was great. We were going to go into the studio, but we heard there was kind of this virus going around and that might impact things. And then everything shut down. The session got pushed. And when we were ready, when the state opened back up for people to gather in small groups indoors, that's when we started to rehearse again and get ready to go up to Sparta and record an album during a pandemic. So that meant wearing masks, social distancing. We couldn't spend the night. They had a biffy outside for us to use. So we were in their home using the bathroom. And man, we made it work. It was still a complete joy to be there. Rich and Jermaine are so wonderful. There was this level of, concern about making sure we were being as careful as possible. And we did testing. We were doing regular testing. And we didn't do all the sessions at once. We did them spread out. There was, one got bumped because someone had a potential exposure. We were waiting for a test back. So it was a roller coaster. It's not how you want to record an album. But I'm so grateful that we did it, and that we did it with all of those concerns in place. I know that I've heard from other studios over the past year where some musicians were not being as careful, or engineers maybe weren't being as careful. And that's so scary when you hear that kind of thing is going on. We took it seriously, and we did things with all the protocol in place. And I feel really good about that. It was a great experience. But like I said, I don't want to record during a pandemic ever again. But I'm so glad that we were able to get up there and get it done.
Yeah, it sounds like Rich and Jermaine were as accommodating as they could be. Granted, a global pandemic was going on, and not just any global pandemic, a virus. Nonetheless, you can't really stop germs if they're in the air. Breanne, it sounds like what was supposed to be maybe a week-long thing turned into, how long did it take? A few months?
Yeah, we started recording. We did a couple sessions in the summer, and then we did a couple sessions in the fall, and wrapped things up. Oh gosh, I want to say it was right before or around Thanksgiving and around the election. So sometime in November. It is a pandemic, so the mind remembers things differently over the months. But I remember it was around the election and it was around Thanksgiving that we were done recording. Rich was mixing things, and we launched a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign because we knew what this album was going to sound like. We were so excited to share it with people. But all the grants that we were looking at applying for were not for projects like this. They were for emergency funds for artists who are working artists. So we had to reach out and ask our fans and friends to pitch in so we could do mixing, mastering, and vinyl and CDs. And so we did the crowdfunding campaign in November, and in the new year we were starting to purchase all of the vinyl and the CDs, and it's been a whirlwind.
It sounds like it. It sounds like there's a lot of experience building in the year that you guys had together. Tell me a little bit about this Kickstarter campaign. I know you've done Kickstarter before. Plenty of musicians have. It's a way to get your art out there and to kind of have the fans and friends back it for you. Was it a little bit different in this year than others? I mean, just realizing that a lot of people had lost their jobs, a lot of people didn't know where they were going to be. Were you ever wary about putting out a Kickstarter for this?
Yeah, it was that, and it was also the death of George Floyd, the protests that were going on, the presidential election, one of the most contentious elections and divided elections we've ever had in this country, and the pandemic, and like you said, unemployment, and people unsure of what was going on. So we asked around a little bit before we launched. We were asking some of our close friends and family. We were also paying attention to other artists that were looking at crowdfunding, things like Patreon and other, not just Kickstarter, but what else was out there and what people were doing. And we had enough people saying, there are people out there looking for ways to support artists. And so this could be a good time. And so we treaded carefully, we treaded lightly as we launched that campaign, and there were people that reached out to us that said, man, I really want to back this project. I just can't right now. And that is just fine. We're not looking for every single person in our circle to pitch in. And we had the project was fully funded within the first 3 weeks, so we had 1 week left for a stretch goal, and that stretch goal raised another $1,500, which helped us do a PR campaign. For the very first time, we were able to work on press, which helped us get some reviews for the album, and that was just fantastic to watch those come through in February and March. As we released, we were getting album reviews from Americana UK and oh gosh, so many Americana Highways and all of these cool publications. The album was in their hands to listen to for the first time. And that all comes back to that Kickstarter project because people invested in this. 120 people put their money down and said, we want to see this album happen. But it's so much more than just making an album. It helped lift our band and help us get that press that we really needed.
Perfect. Oh, excellent. That's wonderful to hear. Can we talk a little bit about the business side of things? Breanne, I know you've got a day job as well as I do, as well as most Duluth musicians do. How was this one different? I mean, taking out the pandemic and everything else, how has the business kind of changed for you, the business side of things?
I think the business side has stayed fairly the same, but I have 8 years of experience now. This was our third full-length album that we had released, so there were a lot of processes for releasing the part of the, the scheduling of everything. A lot of that was dialed in, stuff I had already done, things I knew I had to pull together and get ready. Because of the pandemic, I had more time in the evenings. We had no shows going on, and we were rehearsing as a band, but very lightly and carefully. We weren't rehearsing every single week. So I had time, nights and weekends, outside of my day job, to put together all of my links, all of my bios, and there's so many things you have to do as a band. You have to be everywhere. You have to update the website, the YouTube channel, the social media, and then the CD Baby for publishing. That's who we use. And then all of the ordering and the graphic design and working with the different vendors for, just putting in the order for vinyl. That took over 2 hours just to place an order, because you have to pull all of these, pieces together. So I would say that it was process that I was used to, and I had a little extra time due to the pandemic and not having shows to pull those pieces together. And it also was really welcomed for me to be busy, because it's stressful to be going through a pandemic, and that can really weigh on my anxiety and I'm bipolar too. I go through waves of highs and lows, and I have PTSD, which when you have a traumatic thing like a pandemic going on, that can trigger a lot of stuff. And I was really glad. I'm really grateful to just be digging in on a project like this, something I was really excited about. It kept me busy so that I wasn't, rocking back and forth and fretting over all the things, because I was busy. And I think that was one of my responses to the pandemic, was to keep busy.
Yes. And Breanne, I can attest to that. I myself, I'm used to being busy. I'm a photographer, I'm a podcaster, I, volunteer at theaters around town and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit and all of that went to the wayside. So,
Yes.
we had actually talked about it, that all of a sudden when you're not busy, at first it was kind of welcome for me, I get to go home and, sit on the couch and stuff like that. But then it kind of wears you down. It gets to you. Definitely. And my anxiety has been all over the map, just like everyone else.
Yes.
And I can attest to the PTSD. I have that as well. Just many different traumatic things have happened in my life, but it takes a huge toll on your mental health and your emotional stability. Was there ever a moment during this entire time that you were recording this album that you thought, maybe not, maybe I should hang it up and wait?
Yeah, the time when that hits me, it hits me every time when we do an album, is when it's too late to stop the train. Okay. And what I mean by that is when we are in the heat of release week, and I've lined up all of these interviews and virtual, and for this time it was virtual. So virtual performances, virtual radio appearances and performances, and all of these things need to be posted on social media, and reshared and added to your link tree, so that, and update the website and update, there's so many things to update every time something happens. It's in those moments, every time I release an album, where I say, I shouldn't have done this much, or I should have spread this out. And it's that shoulda, coulda, woulda, and it's too late, because that train has left the station and you are on the track. So you're just going to do what you can do. And every night you're going to close the laptop and say, I did all that I could do today, but I'm going to close it now. Because, you get the law of diminishing returns. And that's where you could stay up to 3 a.m. every night, but how productive are you from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m.? Not productive at all. So you might as well get that sleep, might as well rest, and might as well say, yeah, I didn't get to those 2, 3, 4 things that I wanted to do or could have done or maybe should have done to promote the music, but I need rest. That's what I need to do. So I never get to the point where I want to stop what I'm doing, but I do always reach a point where I did too much. I scheduled too much, and now I've got to deal with those consequences.
Right. Yeah. Breanne, you are preaching to the choir on that one. I totally understand. understand. Totally understand. I just want to take a moment and thank you for sharing what you did about your life. That's kind of a, not necessarily a trend, but something that I've seen is a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork and owning these things about themselves and not backing it with shame or anything like that. To take a little side tangent here, I mean, 10 years ago, it was very hush-hush. You didn't talk about, anxiety or any emotional distress that you had going on. But something that I've seen, especially in the last 2 years, are people just really opening up and saying, hey, we need to talk about this. I need to own this about myself. And I need to find comrades and camaraderie in this as well. And I think it's definitely reached a point where people have realized they're not alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has something, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical. So I just want to take a moment and thank you for sharing that. But getting back on track, if we may. So you had done a virtual show. I believe it was at Sacred Heart, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was the way we did our official album release show for the area. Sacred Heart has been doing live streams monthly since last year when the pandemic started, and we signed up for a show to play with them in, I want to say October. Yes, it was October. And then I ended up getting COVID end of September, early October, and we couldn't get the band together to rehearse. Those final few rehearsals right before a release show or any show are really critical rehearsals for a band. And because I was out for 2 weeks with COVID, we couldn't book enough time before our October show. So we moved it to November. Well, then in November, cases were on the rise with COVID in the area in Minnesota, and the governor started to do the dial back, right? He moved the dial back. We started to have less gatherings, less people in a room. And so we had to postpone our November virtual show at Sacred Heart to February. And I said, you know what, if we're going to make it February, this is going to be our release show because our album comes out in February. So we just picked that date and we made that our release. And it was so amazing to be in Sacred Heart playing these songs off the album and to work on them with the band. So we all hunkered down for the holidays because cases were on the rise around Thanksgiving, Christmas. After the new year, that's when we started to see the cases go down and people were moving that dial forward a little more and gathering, and testing was more widely available in January. So we started to rehearse every week leading up to our release show, and we felt so good playing in that space because we were well rehearsed and we were playing these new songs, and people had the album, they had the CD. Kickstarter backers got their CDs and vinyl records before that Saturday, and the live stream is still online, so you can go to YouTube and search Sacred Heart Music Center or Front Porch Centers, Breanne Marie and the Front Porch Centers, and you can find our live stream. And the performances were so great. You can tell how much fun we're all having in there.
Yes, I ended up watching it. I streamed it from my phone onto my television. It was absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
I'm not really gonna lie. I kind of like video concerts just because for the fact I can drink what I want to. I can go to the bathroom when I want to. You don't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
You're not elbowing somebody, to get your spot back. It's kind of more comfortable that way. However, in my talks with other musicians and things like that have been doing these live shows, they say they miss the back and forth, the vibe and the energy that the audience gives them. Did you find that you were kind of longing for that a little bit? Or was it just something that was so exciting and you've been holding on to it for almost 6 months and you finally got to release it? Was that kind of your high that you had?
Yeah, that we definitely felt like we were riding high from being in a full band, being in a big room. Sounds delicious. Sacred Heart, just you are basically bathing in your own sound. That's the only way to describe it. It's just such a great space. And then we had the tech crew that was there. We had Rich Narum, Eric Swanson, Jose Leon. We had, who else? Sarah Priest. And then Aaron Reiko was there taking photos. So we had a photographer, a sound engineer, a couple of tech folks, and those people were engaged. They weren't just there to do a job and it wasn't like they were going through the motions. They are music fans, and we could tell. So we used them as our audience to play off of. And then Sarah was relaying to us what people were chatting on the live stream feed so that we could comment then. And that if you go back and watch it today, you can hear what people are saying. And Crystal, this was the greatest part. I watched this live stream after. I watched it later that night because I wanted to, hear and see how the sound and video was. And there's a part in the show where I ask people to say yeehaw. And I do this in the live shows. I say, can I get a yeehaw? And the coolest thing was all these people chatted yeehaw. That is so cool because here I'm watching the live stream back and I get to that part and I'm like, oh, I wonder if people are going to be in their homes and say yeehaw. And all these yeehaws pop up on the live chat. And that just warmed my heart because we are still going to engage. This is a pandemic. We can't be there together in person, but you're going to put that yeehaw onto your, you're going to type it, and I'm going to see it on the screen. And that was just the coolest thing for me.
Fabulous. Excellent to hear, Breanne. Excellent to hear. Would you look at putting more live streams into your repertoire? I mean, now they're kind of easing up off of regulations and things like that. People are starting to venture out more. Live shows are around the corner, I hope. Would you look at putting a live stream in your repertoire?
We are going to do a live stream the week of Homegrown. Homegrown Music Festival is virtual. We submitted a video, and that's great, but we want to be able to play something that week, so we're going to do a live stream, more details to come. And then I don't know that we will do many into the future. We might do a show in person and then offer a live stream option. That's something that I do see many venues keeping. Now that we know how to do this with people in person, but also live stream. For example, last night, Sacred Heart had a show with limited in-person tickets and a live stream option. And that's really where I see, especially larger venues, that's where I see things going. And I hope that continues. We will certainly look at that. As far as live stream from a couch or from our music space here in our home, we may not be doing those types of things. Those are really tough to do. It's hard for us to do those because we don't have the back and forth. However, I do see us bringing back a YouTube show that Evan and I started. When the pandemic hit, Evan and I launched Highland Street Sessions. We live on Highland Street in West Duluth, and we have this beautiful rehearsal space. So I think we're going to bring back Highland Street Sessions, which would be a pre-recorded YouTube show, not a live stream, but definitely the digital world of offering music offerings. And what I'd like to do with that is bring in other artists into our home when it's safe and highlight all of the great local musicians we have here in the Twin Ports and touring musicians. As they come through town, I'd like to invite them to come to our home on Highland Street and record a couple songs for our YouTube show.
Wonderful. Breanne, you're venturing to so many new things, new territory for you. Can we jump a little bit more on your Highland Street Sessions? The name itself sounds absolutely fabulous. I love that it's up on YouTube. I'm going to have to take a look as soon as we're done here. So you kind of said that came about after the pandemic kind of hit. Was that just out of necessity and needing to play your instruments and sing your songs and express yourself? Or was that something else entirely?
It was a little bit of that. It was also something we had been planning pre-pandemic. When the pandemic hit, I had already had the logo made for Highland Street Sessions, and what I was hoping to do was something similar to what you've been seeing with all of these virtual things, but pre-recorded. So, something like WDSE's playlist, where you pre-record something and then you play it later on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, YouTube /Breanne Marie Music, there's playlists on there, and there's a playlist for Highland Street Sessions right now. Evan and I did 4 episodes, and we really wanted to connect with people during the pandemic. We wanted to keep playing. You know, it's so hard, like you said, when everything shuts down and you're just sitting on the couch. It's hard to just stop. An object in motion stays in motion, and we had been playing and rehearsing. We were rehearsing every day with the full band every week and playing full band shows once a month, but Evan and I were playing shows every single week. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to come off of. So we did 4 Highland Street Sessions. And what I hope to do after the pandemic is a version of that. It won't look like what Evan and I are doing. Go ahead and watch the videos. They're fun. And we do some special things in there. It'll be a different format, but it'll definitely have that name and that logo and that branding.
Mm-hmm. All right, wonderful. Well, I look forward to Highland Street Sessions. Breanne, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me and the wider world about your music, your album, and your journey in the year 2020 and into 2021. Thank God it's 2021, honestly.
Well, yep. Let's move forward,
exactly, right? Exactly. Breanne Marie, everyone, from Breanne Marie and the Front Porch Sinners. Her new album, Juniper, is out now. You can find it online and on iTunes, I believe, as well.
Yeah, everywhere you can buy music, you can find it.
All right, wonderful. Breanne, if somebody's interested in seeing what you guys are up to, I know you guys have a website. What is that one again?
It's BreanneMarie.com.
All right, fabulous. Breanne, thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you either on the internet or in person soon enough.
Thanks, Crystal.
Have a great one.
Central hillside in our city on a hill, grandma by my side. We would watch the buses run up and down 4th Avenue, watch a helicopter land. If we only knew that was then, this is now. It will never be the same. That was us, all so young, playing childish games. Those were the days, it was fun. There's no way we can't go back to Central Hillside. 91. On a cold winter night in Central Hillside, we went up to the shack, best friends by our side. We laced up tight, hit the ice with no fear, no curfew, no cell phone. If we only knew that was then, this is now. It will never be the same. That was us, all so young, playing childish games. Those were the days, it was fun. There's no way we can't go back to Central Hillside. 91. Well, there's something special about a place when it happens at a time in your life when all makes That was then, this is now. It will never be the same. That was us, all so young, playing childish games, calling